What up everybody, Josh Shelmy here. Thank you all so much once again for tuning in. Now I want to start this video by first shouting out J. Michael Straczynski. His take on Superman in Earth 1 was one of the reminders that Superman can be portrayed in a different light. Superman is more than just smiles and bright colors. Over the weekend, New York Comic Con was in full swing, and actor Dean Cain had some choice words for the DCEU, in particular Man of Steel. Now for those unaware, Dean Cain played Superman in the 90s on the Lois and Clark show. He first critiqued the DCEU as a whole, then went on to suggest that his Superman would have saved Pa Kent after dissing Kevin Costner. Regardless of whether or not his remarks were all in good nature, I don't necessarily agree that Pa Kent wanted to be saved. I'm not saying that Jonathan was wanting to die, but the fact of the matter is that he would have much rather died than to let his son's superhuman strength be exposed to the public. For some reason, there's still the popular notion that Clark let Pa Kent die when he could have saved him. Clark certainly could have saved Jonathan, but Jonathan cared too deeply about his son's secret. Given the context of how the scene was set up, it made sense. Dean either doesn't realize or doesn't care to realize that Clark was still mostly a teenager in that sequence, and not the Superman wearing bright colored undies. I suppose from his perspective, because Dean was already Superman, and because he had the cape and costume with bright colored undies, that him doing something that Henry Cavill didn't do makes his Superman superior. But you gotta look at the scene for what it is. On surface level, it may not be your Superman, but then again, neither of us created the movie Man of Steel, and that extends to Dean Cain. I personally don't mind the scene because it feels realistic and shows that Superman existing in our reality will come with consequences, and that in turn, inevitably, it would extend to the people he cares most about. Where do you think that badass warehouse sequence in Batman and Batman v Superman came from? Oh, that's right, Martha. Furthermore, bright colored undies aside, what might have worked in the 90s on television wouldn't necessarily translate as well in the 2000s on the big screen. In Lois and Clark, The Adventures of My Bright Colored Undies, Dean Cain was already basically Superman, and in that certain sequence in Man of Steel, Clark was not even a full adult. When I look at both Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and to a certain degree Wonder Woman, I look at those films with admiration on how grounded and realistic they are about bringing these heroes to the big screen, and how scenes like, for example, Jonathan's sacrifice leave such an impact that they can be discussed years later. The fact that Jonathan gave up his life to keep his son's secret, to me, adds more depth to the story in Man of Steel, and even directly or indirectly ties into the Superman question in BVS.
My father believed that if the world found out who I really was, they'd reject me out of fear.
And judging by the tug-of-war response from the crowds in the movie Batman v Superman, orchestrated mostly by Lex Luthor, it's hard to say that Jonathan Kent was incorrect. So in retrospect, Jonathan's sacrifice had to be done. Of course, Dean Cain would save Pa Kent if he were playing Superman, because after all, by his and certain others' accounts, we expect Superman to be Superman. But not only would it not feel the same or convey the same message, it would be expected, because like I said, he already had his costume with bright colored undies.